So you're getting your first credit card. That is so exciting, right? You start seeing all the possibilities, the sign-up bonuses, the cashback, the travel points. But let's be real for a second. It's also probably the most dangerous time to have one. There are just so many ways to slip up and end up in a really bad spot. And I'm talking about scary stuff, like high-interest debt and doing some serious damage to your credit score.
Okay, so let's just break this down. On one side, you've got all these amazing rewards. I mean, who doesn't want free money and travel? But on the other side, you've got these very, very real risks. See, credit cards are incredibly powerful tools, but they can also be a total trap. So in this explainer, we're going to walk through exactly how you can get all of the good stuff without falling for any of the bad.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How do you actually pull that off? How do you get all those rewards while dodging all the risks? Well, the answer comes down to 5 essential lessons that every single beginner absolutely needs to learn.
Let's kick things off with lesson 1. And honestly, this is probably the one most people skip, even though it's easily the most important. You have to, and I mean have to, build an emergency fund before you start using a credit card for real. Now, I know, it sounds a little boring, but just trust me on this one. And here's why it's so critical. Life just happens, you know? It's completely unpredictable. We can all budget for rent and for our groceries, but there are always going to be these surprise expenses that just pop up out of nowhere. Things like, boom, you suddenly need 4 new tires for your car, or your dog gets sick and you have an unexpected vet bill, or a pipe bursts under your sink. These things are pretty much guaranteed to happen eventually.
Now check out this number, $1 trillion. That's roughly the amount of credit card debt just in the US alone. And I can guarantee you, a huge chunk of the people who owe that money never, ever planned on carrying a balance. They were just like you. But then life happened, and they didn't have that cash safety net to fall back on.
So, here's the bottom line. An emergency fund is your absolute best defense. It's your shield. It gives you the power to swipe your credit card for those unexpected costs, and still get the points, by the way, and then turn right around and pay it off immediately with the cash you already have saved up. It's what keeps you from having to use that high-interest debt as your only option. Okay, let's move on to lesson 2, because this builds right on top of that foundation. This isn't really a rule, it's more of a critical mindset shift. And if you get this, it'll change how you see your credit card forever.
And this is it right here. The core idea is to treat your credit card exactly like a debit card. Think about it. When you get that new card in the mail and you see a $5,000 credit limit, your brain might think, wow, I have $5,000 to spend. No, that is not the bank's money for you to go on a shopping spree. The mindset shift is to only spend money on your credit card that you already have sitting in your checking account, ready to go.
Because when you get this mindset right, all the good stuff starts to happen automatically. You just start swapping your debit card for your credit card for all the purchases you were going to make anyway. And suddenly, you're earning points and cash back. You're building your credit score super fast. And this is the best part. You pay absolutely $0 in interest.
And that leads us perfectly into lesson number 3, understanding the mechanics of paying your bill the right way. This is where we learn how to make sure you never, ever pay a single penny in interest.
Okay, so every credit card runs on what's called a billing cycle. It's pretty simple. There's an opening date and a closing date. Whatever you spent between those 2 dates gets added up, and that total becomes your statement balance. Then the clock starts ticking. You'll get a payment due date, which is usually about 3 weeks later. That's your window to pay off that statement balance.
Now hold on, because we need to bust a huge myth right here. You've probably heard someone say that carrying a little bit of a balance from month to month is actually good for your credit score. Let me be perfectly clear. That is 100% completely, totally false. It does nothing to help your score. All it does is make credit card companies a ton of money from the interest they charge you.
So, what's the golden rule? It's so simple. Always, always, always pay the full statement balance by the due date. Every single month. No exceptions. When you do this, you literally cannot be charged interest. That scary 25% APR on your card? It doesn't matter. It could be 1,000%. It's totally irrelevant because you never let the interest actually kick in. All right, on to lesson 4. This one is about mastering one of the 2 most important factors for your credit score. A lot of beginners miss this one, but it's called credit utilization. So what on earth is it? Well, credit utilization is just a fancy term for the percentage of your total available credit that you're using at one specific moment in time. And the math here is super simple. You just take your current balance and divide it by your total credit limit. That gives you a percentage. And here's the key. That percentage is what gets reported to the credit bureaus right around your statement closing date each month. So the balance on that specific day is what really matters for your score.
So let's just walk through an example. Let's say you have a $1,000 limit. If you have a $500 balance on that statement closing date, your utilization is 50%. Now, even if you pay it all off in full a week later, that 50% is what got reported, and that's way too high. It can temporarily knock your score down because it makes it look like you're really reliant on credit to get by. But here's a little pro tip, a little hack, especially if you're a beginner with a low credit limit. You can just pay down most of your balance before the statement closing date. So in that last example with the $500 balance, you could just pay off, say, $490 a few days early. Then only a $10 balance or 1% utilization gets reported. And that looks absolutely fantastic to the credit bureaus.
And that brings us to our final lesson, Lesson 5. This one is all about perfecting the single most important factor in your entire credit score. We're talking about your payment history.
Just take a look at this. Your payment history, just making your payments on time, makes up 35% of your FICO score. And that amounts owed category, which includes the credit utilization we just talked about, that's another 30%. That means the last two lessons we just covered, they influence a massive 65% of your credit score. That's huge. Mastering them is pretty much the whole game.
So, how do you make sure you have a perfect payment history? It's actually really easy. You've got two great options. First, you can set up automatic payments to pay your full statement balance. It's an amazing safety net. Or, second, and this is what I like to do, set a couple of reminders on your phone a few days before the bill is due. That way it forces you to log in, look at your statement, check for any weird charges, and just generally stay on top of your spending.
And you really, really want to get this right because the consequences are no joke. A single late payment, just one, can stay on your credit report and drag your score down for 7 years. It's not worth the risk.
So that brings us all the way back to where we started. Is your credit card a tool or is it a trap? Well, after these 5 lessons, you should see that the answer is completely 100% in your control. If you build that safety net, if you adopt that debit mindset, and if you master your payments and your utilization, it won't just be a tool, it'll be one of the most powerful financial tools you